Okay, I've got a project over here at the drill press now, and I'm going to go ahead and drill all the interior holes for the interior cuts. And the reason we're doing this is now when you're using a scroll saw to get these interior gaps cut out, you have to drill an entry hole, feed the blade through the hole, and then cut out the interior. So usually when you're doing a scroll saw project, you will cut out all the interior cuts first, and then you'll move to the exterior to cut out the outside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here as tight as I can. Hopefully I can get it in here tight enough that I can give you an idea of what I want to do here. When I'm drilling these entry holes, I'm looking for a couple of specific things usually. I'm going to try to zoom in closer here if I can. See if I can get a decent view of it for you here. If you look at, like in this case on the word mom here at the end of the pattern, we've got an oval here that we're going to cut out. So basically I can drill that entry hole anywhere in there I want. But now down here between the M and the T, we've got a couple corners here. And I'll generally go ahead and put that entry hole close to that corner because I can start and stop in that corner, and we won't have any rough cuts, you know, where we start and stop the cut. And I'll show you a little bit once we get over to the scroll saw how to keep this smooth also over here on the oval. But if you have a corner like that, a 90-degree corner, or you know, any type of two lines meeting each other, it's a good place to begin your cut because it really hides where you start and stop at. Over here at the scroll saw now, and I want to talk just a couple minutes here about some of the basics of getting set up over here. First thing I want to talk about is the blade and how to know what type of blade to choose. And this is a huge question, and I'll eventually do a bigger video, a longer video just on blade selection. But I just want to go through kind of my rules for what I do and what blades I use. I guess a minimalist when it comes to blades. I don't use a lot of different size and types of blades. The one thing I do religiously use is the Flying Dutchman blades. I really like these blades. They last a long time. They're very sharp. They cut very smooth, and I don't think you can beat them. So I think the Flying Dutchman blades are my choice anyway for most projects. In this case, I'm going to use a scroll reverse number 5. Now the scroll reverse, basically what that does for you is it gives you a cleaner cut on the back of the pattern. A lot of times you'll cut these scroll saw patterns out and you'll look really good on the front, but you'll have a lot of fuzzies on the back that you'll have to sand off. And using these scroll reverse blades, it'll really cut down on the amount of sanding you have to do. Now this is a 3/4 inch piece of poplar, and probably going by the book I should be using probably a number 7 blade on this. I'm comfortable with the number 5. It's a little small for this project, but I've got a lot of them and it works well for me. So on this project I'm going to use the number 5 unless I find that it's not working out for me real well. Okay, so I've gone ahead and installed my blade, and I'm going to do the interior cuts first. Now I'm what they call a bottom feeder. I leave the top of the blade loose and I feed it through the pattern from the bottom. Now you can see that the downside of this is it's hard to find the holes sometimes for the interior cut you're going to make. So a lot of people have gotten in the practice of loosening the bottom clamp and they feed the blade down from the top. And that's probably a better practice to get into. It's just not something that I started out doing, so I'm in the habit of doing it this way. And unless I have a larger piece that I'm really struggling to find the holes, I just continue to do it this way. But just be aware that you can feed the blade from the top or the bottom. Either way, you know, is acceptable, and people do it different ways. Okay, before we start on this project, I want to tell you another thing about the scroll saw that's kind of a basic principle of scroll saws that you need to know about. When these particular blades are made, there's a small burr on the back side of the blade just because of the way the blade's made. So it has a tendency to make all scroll saws cut at an angle. In this case, if you didn't know, you'd start this out and you'd try to feed your wood, you know, exactly in line with the blade. And if you do that, what will happen is it'll cut at an angle on you. And until you get used to that angle, you'll struggle making nice straight cuts. So what you want to do is position your, once you get used to the angle that your saw is going to cut out, position your chair to a little bit to the right of the blade so that when you're setting, you're facing looking in the angle of the cut. So in this case, I'm going to exaggerate a lot, but move your piece to this side and then feed your piece into the blade at an angle. And you'll see here when I start this out what I'm talking about. You can see that this would be the normal setting right in front of the blade, and I'm actually shifted over this direction. So now if I go ahead and feed this piece in here, you can see I'm cutting a straight line, or as straight as I can anyway, into this piece, and I'm at an angle. So you want to watch that, and you have to learn that on your particular saw. So that's the first thing to watch out for, and that just takes a little practice to get used to that. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this blade into the first interior cut we've made here. I want to zoom in just a little bit more and talk about how I'm going to begin this cut. Now in this case, this cut is the inner oval inside the letter O that we need to cut out. Now there's two different schools on how you would go about starting this cut on an oval. One is you would start and move into the oval and then cut around it, okay, and that'll work fine. The other is to come into the oval at a 90-degree angle, and as soon as you get to the edge, then flip it. And what you're trying to do in both cases is not be able to see the start and stop point of your cut. So I have a tendency to come in at an angle. It's just the way I've done it over the years. But if you get proficient at it, you'll actually get a cleaner cut by coming in at a 90-degree angle, excuse me, and then as you get there, spin the piece around. So I'm going to go ahead and begin this cut. And you can see as I'm cutting this, I'm using my fingers as pivot points in these circles I'm making. And that's the one thing that you want to learn as you're cutting, especially when you're cutting curves, is learn to pivot that wood around the finger. Use one hand to guide the wood and the other hand to give yourself a pivot point. And I'm going to drop that piece out of there, and hopefully I'm zoomed in close enough here where you can see what I'm talking about. But you can see when the start and stop point, I left a little nub right there, which is not something you want to see, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that on the camera. But right there where I started that cut, there's a piece sticking out. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just not worry about it, and then once I get it to like that, I'll just come back in and shave that piece off. You can kind of use the edge of the blade as a sander, or you can sometimes even come right into it like this and move it back and forth like this to sand that nub off. Okay, now the other school would be that if you'd come in at the right angle and then spun it, you wouldn't have had that nub to begin with. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pop out of that, and we'll go to the next interior cut. And I'll show you the difference between not having strictly an oval and having a corner that you can begin your cut in. In this case, I've got an interior cut here that has a corner. It's where the T intersects in with the M right here. So right there where they intersect, I've got a corner, a 90-degree angle. And what I'm going to do is spin the piece around and bring the blade into the corner, and then I'll spin out of that corner. And then when I come back and finish, you'll see I'll end up in that corner, and I can usually get a cutout where you can't see where I began at. Okay, so I've made my loop down there at the bottom, I'm coming back up, and all I'm really trying to do is line up that cut, the end right in that corner. And if I do, then I should have a fairly smooth transition there that you can't see, which is what we're looking for. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off to keep from boring you. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the rest of the interior cuts, just like we did those two. Once I get those done, then we'll bring the camera back on and talk about the exterior cut just a little bit.